Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Upside. I'm Kyle Cheropita. The world of emerging technologies is vast and exciting. Emerging tech is characterized by rapid change, significant disruption, and unlimited potential. Self-driving vehicles, artificial intelligence with decision-making abilities, and smart homes that learn your habits and predict your needs are just a few recent examples. We've also seen significant advancements in medical technologies. But for every good news story, there are also considerations around privacy, regulation, and the brisk speed of tech advancements. So joining me today to share what he is seeing firsthand is John Bradley, Director of Emerging Technologies here at Fidelity. John spends his time staying a step ahead of what's next, attends many conferences, and brings those insights back. And I'm very happy to have John in the studio with me today. Welcome, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm really happy to have you here. And so we're talking emerging tech today, but to be clear, to everyone out there, you're not an AI generation. We're not in the metaverse.
No.
That's even still a thing. And you're not a hologram. Yeah, you're here with me live in real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned in the intro, you are traveling a lot, and you started the year going to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. You escaped the cold and snow that we're stuck with here in Canada.
Yeah, that's right.
Perhaps you can tell me a little bit about what is CES and what were some of the key themes you saw there?
Yeah, so just at a very high level, the Consumer Electronics Show is one of the biggest technology conferences in the world. So I think this year there was around 140,000 participants, which is 3 times more than my lovely hometown of Chatham, Ontario.
Shout out Chatham.
Yeah, shout out to Chatham. And so at CES, that's where a lot of the major tech vendors release their product lineup for the year. So there's a lot of big announcements from household names like Google, Sony, Panasonic. Just about everybody is there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into some of the key themes that you saw there. But first, you travel there. I know you recent trip to Africa as well. You travel a lot. Must get pretty tiring, having to book all these trips and plan. You do it all yourself?
No, I actually had some help from AI. So
of course you did. Yeah.
Part of the emerging tech team, what we did is we put together a multi-agentic system. So used AI agents to help plan all these conference visits and attendance. So we have an AI agent that specializes in coordinating things like flights, hotels, restaurants, cool things to see, piles that all back together into an itinerary and an agenda, and then based on that, we kind of plan the rest of our schedule. So we had some help from AI, but there's also some human overlay on that as well.
That's really interesting. Now, do you tell the agent, I'm heading there on this day, tell me what to do? What's the process like there?
So it's actually much more straightforward than that and simple. So essentially what we do is we put in the conference that we want to go to and we put in where we're leaving from, and then the AI agents take care of everything else. So
it's that simple these days.
It's that simple. The full itinerary is kind of then given to us, and then we will make adjustments. But at that point, it's more minor adjustments. So it takes care of all the heavy lifting. And where, when we get it, we're just making fine kind of tuning to the overall plan to whatever suits kind of our travel schedule.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious if others are using this as well, and then what would happen when, say, 500 people show up at that best steakhouse in Vegas because that's what their agents book for all of them.
Right. I'm sure people are using AI to some degree to help manage their travel. It's one of those things that it's super helpful for. I don't know if they have a multi-agentic system like we do at Fidelity, but it's possible. And then to your point about everybody showing up at the same spot, there's always that risk because AI will go out and search the internet and these popular websites that have information about hotels and restaurants. So there's a chance that all the different AI versions of this travel planner are all referencing the same site. So everybody's going to show up to the same spot. You can adjust for that, but it's a possibility.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Now, I'm curious, you mentioned this before we started recording here, that now you're also getting the agents who start to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So is the next step of this that your conference planning agent will then even connect with the steakhouse, the restaurant's agent, and complete the reservation?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about, kind of future potential of these AI agents. So they have an ability to kind of work together in a team like you would at wherever, your job or you would work together with your friends to plan a trip.
Right.
So that's the next iteration. Right now, it's kind of doing the planning, but it stops short of actually booking the flight or booking the reservation. But you could easily see that being the next step, just to remove that level of friction between, say, a restaurant or a hotel and the people that are trying to book their services.
Wow. So let's expand on that a bit, take it away from just the conferences. What are some other examples in the world right now of where multiple agents might be talking to each other to accomplish something?
Well, you could see something like creating various types of content. So there could be agents specific to going out and doing the preliminary research and then creating a draft of something and then having a different agent review that to make sure it's compliant with whatever the message or the organization is trying to convey. And then there could be another agent that's doing the legal or regulatory review. So you could kind of piece these agents together much like you would have an internal team. So if you think about the various teams across different organizations, you could have agents set up to replicate some of those workflows and those different interactions. So the possibilities are almost endless.
Okay. Continuing on that topic of sort of the chatbots and the agents, a term that is being tossed around a lot more lately is vibe coding. Hoping you could define that for our audience and explain a bit about what that is.
Yeah. So at a very kind of high level, what vibe coding really is leveraging AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you when you're doing some type of development or coding task. So previously, somebody would have to write all of these things, write all of the code themselves. Now this vibe coding, what you can do is much like you'd interact with, say, ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, you can tell these tools, hey, this is what I'm looking to create, and it'll go off and do the majority of the work for you. So it's more, you get into this kind of groove or you get into a vibe where you're interacting with this AI development tool, and that AI development tool then creates the app or the process or the product that you're looking for. It's not a perfect solution. You definitely want to have people check that over. So your development team should check that just to make sure everything is safe and compliant. But that's essentially what vibe coding is at a high level.
Interesting. Now, I don't have much experience with the coding side of things, but using those chatbots to do research and other things. I know historically the problem of hallucinations have been big. Is that something that's still happening with the coding side of it as well?
It definitely is. So it's that isn't going to go anywhere regardless of what kind of generative AI tool that you're using. Because it's AI, there is a possibility that there's going to be errors or incorrect information provided. So you always want to check the output, whether you're using ChatGPT, Copilot, or one of these kind of new vibe coding tools. So that's always going to be present. There are certain things that you can do to mitigate that kind of error rate, but it doesn't fully go away.
Okay. What have you seen? Because this has been new, relatively new, but it's been around for a few years now. What improvements have you seen over the past few years? And really what I'm kind of drawing from this question is I've heard some of our PMs and analysts say, the current version of AI that you're using is the worst version that it will ever be because it's always improving. Anything to say on that?
So there's going to be a few things that will help improve the quality of the output. So the more data that these tools have access to, the better the responses are going to be, the higher the quality, the more accurate they're likely to be. So the previous tools that we would have been using a couple years ago, they had a smaller data set, and some of them would have been frozen from a particular time period and looking backwards. Now these new tools are generally looking at kind of more current events. They're able to search the internet to get up-to-date information. So there's a higher likelihood that the information is going to be more accurate. In addition to that, when we're building out these multi-agent systems, what we can actually do is we can set up an agent to fact check the kind of initial output. So like I was saying, in content generation, for an example, if there's an agent that's going to go search the internet to put together an article we might be looking to publish, we then have an agent to make sure that information is correct. So again, you have AI checking AI. There's still probability that some of that information could be incorrect, but the more checks and balances that you incorporate into that overall pipeline, the higher the likelihood that you're going to get an accurate and complete answer.
The point there about the frozen in time is interesting because I've found, and maybe it's because I'm seeing some free versions of this, but I'll always start by asking, what date is it today? Because I've had it in the past where it is frozen in a prior part of time, and it'll tell me, the current prime minister is Trudeau, or the current president is Biden. And then it's a clear indication like, okay, it's not pulling relevant current data.
No, absolutely. And that was historically when ChatGPT first hit the scene. It was current up to, I think, 2020 or something around that time period, even though we were sitting in 2023, 2024. So if you're asking like in a historical example about who won the World Series in 1920, it was going to give you that answer, correctly 99% of the time.
Right.
But if you're asking about a current event that happened last week, there's a high likelihood it was going to be incorrect.
Yeah.
So now, these new tools are searching the internet, incorporating new data all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still, again, an opportunity that they're going to be incorrect, but that kind of margin of error is going down.
Right. With the different agents who are talking to each other, fact-checking each other,
Yeah.
Also something that's been rising lately is that stitching. It's not just an agent finding a piece of data from one place and presenting it to you,
Right.
but pulling that data from numerous spots,
Right.
customizing it, and then
Right.
presenting it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something where we talking about those multiple agents again,
Mm-hmm.
Behind the scenes, there's a potential that these kind of major enterprise-wide tools or public-facing tools that actually have multi-agent systems. So
Mm-hmm.
they have an agent, say, dedicated to Reddit. They have an agent dedicated
Right.
to LinkedIn, just as an example. So they're specialized in these various data sources, and then they all bring their information back. And then there's a project manager agent that synthesizes it all together
Right.
and delivers it in a format that is going to be relevant to you. So a lot of that is happening behind the scenes.
Very cool. A
Yeah.
lot of neat stuff happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that stitching example, I'll just pull this is for our audience as well. Louis Tetu, who's the executive chairman of Coveo, joined our Fidelity Connects program last month. He did both an English and a French interview. They were fantastic. Check them out on YouTube. And he was talking a lot about, the advancements, the AI agents and the stitching.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Absolutely.
We talked a lot about the AI agents. Let's pivot back to CES a little bit.
Yes.
Wearables was
Yes.
a big takeaway from that conference. Love to get your thoughts on wearables.
Yeah, wearables is something really interesting because it seems to have been a big thing. They had Google Glasses and those kind of went away. And now it seems like the whole wearables and smart glasses has come back with full force. You have Meta that's really promoting their kind of new Meta glasses, and you have other competitors in the space. So that was a big topic that was talked about at CES. And if you were to listen to those companies, they're suggesting that these wearable glasses might be, the next iteration of smartphones. Whereas a lot of us are walking around today looking down at our phones and, bumping into things. The kind of promise of these smart glasses is that you can have all of this information surfaced to you while you're walking around, while you're talking to people. And so you don't necessarily lose that connection with your environment and what's going on around you. So it's a more integrated technology experience. So that was a big discussion at CES.
Wow. And is that strictly at this point talking about glasses, or does it get into, say, watches and, I don't know, VR headsets? Is that all still connected?
Glasses seem to be the big push right now, just because that's how you can surface information. But you could easily envision a world where all of these things are integrated into kind of a seamless ecosystem where you have your smart glasses on that are surfacing, your texts and news and other things, but they're also surfacing alerts from your smartwatch that's monitoring your heart rate, maybe in a stressful situation or while you're exercising. Say you're going for a jog and it's telling you to go left, and here's how the next portion of your run, all these other things. So you could easily envision a world where they're all tied together.
Very interesting. So there's a bit of a medical angle. Anything more to say on sort of those advancements and the link back to the medical field with wearables?
Well, there seems to be a big promise just because the cost of these different types of medical sensors is going down. So they seem to be integrated into more and more things, consumer products. For example, you buy a smartwatch now and it can tell you everything about your heart rate, how you're walking, how your sleep score is. And so I would imagine that, as the technology advances, those types of sensors are being included in more things. And then that could potentially have predictive power for, identifying if you're maybe at an early stage for various types of medical conditions, or if you need to kind of be proactive about certain things related to your health. So there's definitely opportunity there.
So I'm thinking with wearables, though, there's this overarching theme with tech that the tech advancements are happening faster than, say, regulation can keep up. So from like a privacy perspective, I don't know, what's it going to be like in a few years if everybody's walking around with little mini computers on their face?
Well, it's an interesting question, because if you think about, even from a work perspective, I'm sure most of our employers aren't going to want us walking around looking at sensitive documents or having conversations with clients and all of it being recorded. So it represents an interesting problem that I think both has to be addressed from the regulators from a privacy perspective, walking around, what are our rights in terms of this new technology? Do we have the right to say, I don't want you to record, or I don't want this in certain sensitive areas? And then from an employer's perspective, how are we going to take advantage of this technology effectively while not, putting ourselves in potential risk situations? So I think it's an evolving landscape. Technology generally moves much faster than regulators. But there is some nuance there, and there's going to have to be some consideration from companies about how much further out in front do they want to be than the regulators? Do they want to be at the bleeding edge and adopt this technology immediately? Or do they want to kind of wait around to see how the regulatory landscape kind of shapes up before they start to adopt this type of technology?
Interesting. So it's always a balance, and I guess the company's deciding how much they want to play by the rules or not.
And how much risk they want to expose themselves to, right? In terms of, there's advantage to being a first mover, but there's also the uncertainty that comes with that. So it's a delicate balance, and individuals and corporations have to make that judgment call for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe to make things a little bit positive as we ramp up towards the end of our chat here. At CES, I was also reading one of the big key themes of the conference was green products and sustainable products. What did you see there?
There's a lot of interesting things. So the kind of sustainable products ranged all the way from new types of screens in laptops and TVs that are much more energy efficient. So that helps reduce the load on, our various kind of power plants and other things, which can be a positive, all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum, where using AI to kind of manage the energy load within your house.
Oh, cool.
So being able to understand kind of what the general patterns are when you use your stove, when you use your laundry, and routing the power appropriately to those major appliances in order to kind of both save energy and save money. So the smart home was something that was talked about a lot, and the opportunities for kind of sustainable tech. That was a big component there as well.
Now, and I mentioned the smart homes off the top as well. I still think it's pretty cool that I can tell Alexa to turn on, a lamp. Once we call one Cornelius because he lives in the corner.
Nice.
But it's so much more than that these days. Like, what else are you seeing in smart homes?
Well, I have a Google Nest at my house actually, and so it's able to to understand our patterns. So we like to turn the heat down when we go to bed, but turn it on when we wake up. So it's been able to recognize those patterns throughout the 4 different seasons that we have. So it'll make recommendations. It's like, hey, do you want to save an extra $10 a month on your heating and cooling bill? We suggest doing this. And so it'll establish those patterns. So that's something that's really cool. And again, certain types of appliances have intelligence to them that they'll only turn on at certain times of day or certain scenarios. Again, just to reduce the overall kind of energy consumption from the house. So that's, I think, pretty neat.
Now, are we at the point where all the routines get linked where, say, you leave to go to work and the car is already started and then the temperature of the house is already going down because it knows your patterns so well?
Yeah, absolutely. And so right now, like, for example, my car had the ability to kind of set those patterns. The house would also set those patterns. When it detected that I had walked far enough away from the house, it would go into away mode. And when I got close enough, it would turn back on. Now, right now, those things are kind of happening independently, but you could easily see a world where everything talks to each other. So that's kind of the Internet of Things that people talk about. And so that's really a game changer if we're talking about efficiency and sustainability. If all of your appliances and the major things that you interact with on a daily basis can talk to each other, then you can get real efficiencies in terms of energy consumption and just helping you manage your day.
Wow. Well, we'll have to have you back again to learn more about this.
Yeah, I'd love to be back.
When is the next trip, or where is the next trip to?
So next trip is going to be right around the corner. We're heading to Silicon Valley to talk to some of the major tech vendors out there, understand kind of what's top of mind for them and how we can utilize that technology to help improve the lives of our Fidelity clients as well as our internal stakeholders.
Nice. And are you doing that trip with your emerging tech team, or do you overlap with any of the portfolio managers and analysts when they do their trips?
So we're going to do that with, we have an internal innovation committee.
Oh, cool.
So, specializing on the latest and greatest, and how do we bring that back into Fidelity Canada more broadly speaking. Once we've identified those trends, the emerging tech team takes it over and really makes it tangible for our stakeholders.
Nice. Okay, John, thank you so much for joining me today. And I want to wrap up by quoting a chatbot who is writing an AI slop post for LinkedIn and say, I thought this conversation today was going to be good, but I was wrong. It was great.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So thank you all for watching today as well. And here at Fidelity Canada, we're releasing new content daily. So please look up the Upside or Fidelity Connects podcast for more. You can get an exclusive first look at Upside shows as a streamed webcast where you can learn to be a better investor and hear from some of Canada's best stock pickers and leading financial experts. To not miss a show, head to fidelity.ca and sign up for the next webcast or the Upside newsletter. Thanks for watching today, and I hope you'll join us again. I'm Kyle Cheropita. Thanks for listening to, or watching, Fidelity Canada's The Upside podcast. Subscribe on your podcast platform of choice so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what you're hearing, please leave a review or a 5-star rating. Fidelity mutual funds and ETFs are available by working with a financial advisor or through an online brokerage account. Visit fidelity.ca/howtobuy for more information. While on fidelity.ca, you can also find more information on future live webcasts. And don't forget to follow Fidelity Canada on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or X. We'll wrap things up today with a quick disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Fidelity Investments Canada ULC or its affiliates. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. It is not an offer to sell or buy or an endorsement, recommendation, or sponsorship of any entity or securities cited. Read a fund's prospectus before investing. Funds are not guaranteed. Their values change frequently and past performance may not be repeated. Fees, expenses, and commissions are all associated with fund investments. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.